The city felt different that night. Not louder, not quieter, just different. The kind of night where the air feels heavy, like something is about to happen. You know the feeling. When people suddenly speak a little softer, when footsteps echo longer than they should, and everyone seems to be aware of one name. Kang Jae-Min, the man people rarely talked about in public. Not because they were told not to, but because everyone already understood. Kang Jae-Min didn't need attention. His reputation arrived before he did. People called him the Mafia boss, the man who controlled the night without raising his voice. But the strange thing is, that night wasn't about him. It was about someone else. Because on that quiet evening, a woman walked into his world. And from the moment their eyes met, something shifted. Something neither of them expected. That was the night Kang Jae-Min met Kim Ara. And well, that's where this story begins. Rain had been falling most of the evening. Not the loud kind. Just a steady rhythm against the pavement. Soft enough that people barely noticed. The Volkov Club, though most people simply called it Jae-Min's place, glowed warmly against the wet street. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and quiet luxury. Soft piano music floated through the room, the kind that makes conversations slow down. People spoke calmly there, not because they were afraid, but because the atmosphere demanded it. Near the far window, Kang Jae-Min sat alone. Dark suit, calm expression, one hand resting lightly against the table. He wasn't doing anything dramatic, just observing. Jae-Min had a habit of studying rooms the way other people read books. Quietly, patiently. But then, the door opened, and the rhythm of the room changed. Just slightly. A woman stepped inside. Rain shimmered faintly on her coat. Outside, the street smelled like wet asphalt and cold wind. Inside, the warm lights caught her face as she removed the hood from her jacket. She didn't rush. Didn't hesitate either. Just looked around calmly. She was a Black Korean woman. And somehow, she carried herself like someone who didn't feel the weight of the room. Most people did. This place had a reputation. But she simply walked to the counter. "Tea, please," she said softly. "Not whiskey. Not wine. Just tea." The bartender nodded. And the woman, Kim Ara, sat near the window. For a moment, nothing happened. The piano music continued. The rain tapped quietly against the glass. But across the room, Kang Jae-Min noticed something unusual. She never once looked nervous. Most people did. But she simply sat there, watching the rain, as if the city belonged to no one. And that caught his attention. Jae-Min waited. A minute. 2. 3. He had learned something over the years. Interesting things reveal themselves if you're patient. But eventually, he stood. Not quickly, just slowly enough that people noticed. His shoes tapped lightly against the polished floor. Step, 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 until he reached the seat beside her. Kim Ara looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was no fear in her expression. No forced politeness. Just quiet curiosity. Jae-Min tilted his head slightly. "Well," he said calmly. "You're new here." Ara studied him for a second. "Am I that obvious?" Her tone wasn't defensive, just honest. Jae-Min allowed himself the faintest smile. "Most people don't sit here unless they know who owns the room." Ara glanced around slowly, then back at him. "Well," she said softly, "now I do." Outside, the rain grew heavier. Soft thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. Inside the club, The piano continued. Yi-min leaned lightly against the table. You don't seem worried. Ara raised an eyebrow slightly. Should I be? The question hung between them. Not challenging. Just curious. Yi-min studied her again. People reacted to him in predictable ways. Fear. Respect. Nervous admiration. But Ara did none of those things. She simply looked at him like he was. Well, a person. You walked into a place people usually avoid, he said. She nodded slowly. I noticed. And you stayed. Ara shrugged lightly. Well. She hesitated, almost smiling. The tea smelled good. For the first time that evening. Yi-min laughed. Not loudly. Just quietly enough to surprise the room. Across the club, a few heads turned. Because Kang Jae-Min rarely laughed. But somehow, this woman made it feel easy. Time passed. They spoke quietly. About simple things. The rain. The city. The strange quietness of nights like this. Ara mentioned she had only recently arrived in town. Yi-min didn't ask too many questions. He preferred observing. Finally, though, he asked the one thing he had been wondering. Why this place? Ara looked out the window. Rain streaked softly across the glass. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she spoke quietly. Sometimes, she said, the quietest rooms hide the most interesting stories. Yi-min considered that. Because she wasn't wrong. And suddenly, he felt something strange. The sense that meeting her wasn't random. That somehow, this moment had been waiting to happen. The rain eventually slowed. People began leaving the club. One by one. The night settling into its usual silence. Ara stood near the door. Her coat resting gently over her shoulders. Yi-min walked beside her. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, she turned toward him. Thank you for the tea. Yi-min nodded. You're welcome. Ara opened the door. Cold night air drifted inside. But before she stepped outside, she paused. Yi-min. He looked up slightly. Yes. She smiled faintly. You watch people carefully. He shrugged lightly. It's a habit. Ara nodded once. Well, she said softly. You might want to watch the city more carefully too. Then she stepped into the night. The door closed slowly behind her. Yi-min remained there for a moment. Thinking. Because something about that conversation felt important. And deep down, he knew something else. That night wasn't just the night he met Kim Ara. It was the night his world quietly began to change. And across the street, a car engine started. Someone had been watching the club the entire time. Which meant one thing. The story between Kang Jae-Min and Kim Ara was only just beginning. So the question is, who exactly is Kim Ara? And why did she choose that club on that night? Because Kang Jae-Min may have met her by chance. But someone else had been waiting for that meeting all along.